Land did not become available peacefully. It was cleared. Clearing land did not begin with settlers. It began with policy. By the early 1800s, indigenous nations occupied land that European settlers and the U.S. government wanted to control. This land was not ungoverned. It was governed by nations with treaties recognized by the United States. In 1830, Congress passed the Indian Removal Act. This law authorized the federal government to force indigenous nations east of the Mississippi River to relocate west. Removal was presented as exchange. In practice, it was compulsion. Treaties were signed under pressure, broken when inconvenient, and enforced selectively. Some indigenous nations challenged removal in court. In Worcester versus Georgia, the Supreme Court ruled that states had no authority over indigenous nations. The ruling was ignored. Federal power moved forward anyway. Removal was not a failure of law. It was the use of law. Removal did not happen all at once. It happened village by village. Military units arrived. Notices were issued. Deadlines were enforced. Homes were abandoned. Crops were left behind. Livestock was seized or lost. Families were forced to move with what they could carry. Those who resisted were met with force. Removal was not a single march. It was a series of forced journeys. Elders struggled to walk. Children became separated from parents. Communities fractured mid-movement. Disease spread. Hunger followed. Exposure killed. Thousands died, not by accident, but by predictable consequence. The land being cleared had names. In the Southeast, Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole nations occupied fertile land across Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Florida. Along the Mississippi River Valley, indigenous communities farmed land that would later become prime agricultural territory. In the Midwest, the region surrounding Cahokia, near present-day Illinois, had long supported complex societies before being reduced to farmland. This land did not become empty, it was emptied. Removal did not end in the Southeast. As the United States expanded westward, indigenous nations were pushed again. Places like the Grand Canyon, home to the Havasupai, Hualapai, and Hopi, were placed under federal control. Access to ancestral land became restricted. Sacred land became federal property. Indigenous stewardship was replaced with government oversight and tourism. Once indigenous nations were removed, land was surveyed. It was divided, titled, reassigned. Settlers moved in. Plantations expanded. Enslaved African labor intensified. Removal and enslavement were not separate systems. They operated together. By the time land was ready to be given away, the people who once lived on it had already been displaced. The next question was not how the land was cleared, but who would be allowed to own it.